Welcome to another day on this planet and another episode of the Silicon Slope Show. My name is Clint. Garrett Clark is here. Before we get to Garrett real quick, Domo-palooza is in town. Big old Domo-palooza with the great company Domo. It's happening March 26th through 29th. Go to domo.com/Domo-palooza. We'll share a little video about what's happening there a little bit later. And we have a guest. Garrett, over to you this fine morning.
Thank you. Matthew Nanes, who is the founder of Chapters Creative. How are you doing?
Good. I'm awake and I'm here. And also, everyone gets this wrong. My last name is Nanes. Got to throw some Spanish inflection.
Nanes.
I think
Garrett, how'd you screw that up so quick?
Everyone does though. Like my son, he's like, everyone gets my name wrong. I'm like, welcome to how things are.
Matthew Nanes.
Yeah. It's all good.
All the way from Ogden.
Yep, O-Town.
Tell us about Chapters Creative, man.
Yeah, man. It started about 2 years ago. Honestly, out of necessity. We can get into the spirit of it all. But I had spent about 10 years doing content. Doing marketing for within other companies. But we'd have clients. Wrangler or Cliff Bar or Sprint. And I would do these stories for them and content. And I figured. I always had a hankering to help other folks, but I was always kind of scared to do it. But, I finished up at my last full-time job and I was like, you know what, I just need to jump. And so I did. And I wanted to really help people, using, storytelling frameworks. Hero's Journey is pretty big for me. I know a lot of people there's some people that think it's so rudimentary, but I got my opinions on that. But
Hero's Journey is the ultimate story.
Yeah, the Joseph Campbell of it all. And so I like to help build brands now. I do brand strategy, from a copywriting point of view. I'm not a designer, but I bring designers in to help me bring brand stories to life. And right now I'm mostly focusing on first time founders. And like I said before we got on, whether it's they're 20 seconds into it or 20 years into it and it's their only business they have, it's just that much more personal to me. And that's kind of how I like to approach things on a very personal level. So
I'm going to zero in on one of those.
Yeah.
Wrangler.
Yeah. Wrangler was interesting because it was kind of
I wonder why you would zoom in, get another shot of just Garrett, just straight on Garrett here. Let's take a look.
Let's not.
Go ahead. This guy wants to know about Wrangler.
Yeah. It's going to be the best story.
Go ahead. Yeah. So I started working with them and I was working at a business down in Salt Lake called Expert Voice. And
oh, no way.
Yeah. I spent
Tom Stockham?
Yep.
Cool.
He was a CEO there when I was there. And so they were one of the clients. And so hey, Matt, you want to do Wrangler? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not a, Wrangler guy if you'll look at me, but I pride myself on being a chameleon of some sorts, I always find something to be curious about. And I think the product we were working on was Cool Vantage. So you're working hard, it's good. These jeans are going to keep you cool. And so I learned about the product, that was the main idea. But, part of what I did is I wanted to get down to, the heritage of Wrangler, because they've been around for decades at this point.
Right.
And part of my job there was okay, well, what assets do you have in order for us to build this digital experience? Because that's what we did there, for folks to learn about a product and they take a test on it and then they get, discounts, whatever. And surely in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, this is going to be no big deal. They're going to give me troves of stuff from the vault, that we can put on this website and it's going to be cool. And a week later, it's we don't really have much here. And it was very low res photos. And it just kind of blew my mind. It's surely someone in that company has the stuff, right? But the fact that maybe the internal, I don't know, DNA maybe, because I know they probably got bought out by some big company. I think it's
private equity group.
Yeah. They own Vans or whatever. I think Vans probably does a better job of that. But the fact that these marketing managers couldn't just immediately and go get all these history rich.
That's actually crazy.
It was crazy.
As iconic as Wrangler.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, it was several years ago, right? But that kind of flipped the switch to me because I didn't come to my profession from like a marketing point of view. Like I have an English degree. I thought I was going to be a teacher. I just
Hell
ended
yeah,
up like
dude,
working
that's cool.
with. I just thought I was going to end up, doing that. But when I fell into this and I realized that, I was like, wait, time out. Like there's a real need here, because what I've learned is like, even with myself, with my own company, like it's so easy to get tunnel vision and, kind of miss the forest for the trees and not have that outside point of view. And so that was like, okay, this is the start of something interesting. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think I was ever going to have my own business. But I just saw something clicked in me. And so I ended up doing one more project with them for their rigs line, their like construction work line. But they were great. They were a cool client, But yeah, that was like the origin story. That was like the Spider-Man, like spider biting my hand.
Yeah, you got bit by the Wrangler.
I did, the Wrangler spider.
So fast forward, it's clear that you have passion for helping the brands and creating the stories. English major. For those that don't know, like what copywriting is, you mentioned that. What is that in a brief?
For those
synopsis?
who don't know, Garrett doesn't know.
I don't even know. I'm just kidding. For me, like there's all sorts of different like schools of like copywriting, like SEO. Like that was kind of like my first experience as far as like professional experience, like doing that. But if I were to sum it up, copywriting to me is like the written word, like achieving a goal, whether it's, selling something or putting forth an idea, and I know like some writers out there might be like, well, there's artistic writing, but copywriting specifically for me, when it comes to like business and trying to get an idea with an end result, like that's copywriting to me. It's pretty simplistic, like I'm sure like you can wax poetic on it for a bit.
Sure.
But but I think I mentioned earlier like a little bit of like AI a bit, and people are using AI tools for copywriting, and I've dabbled a little bit. But for me, like if the thing with writing, like in communication, is like it's one of the first things we ever did as like, if you want to say like a species, whatever which way you want to look at it, whether it's like an evolutionary way or like, Judeo-Christian way. It's like we were writing from the dawn of time, or communicating that way using our hands to something else. And I don't mind using, AI as a tool to get the brain going. This is a start of like a brainstorm, but ultimately it needs to come from somewhere like real in human, because that's what we're doing. We're communicating to other humans, and we're going to be doing that until it's all over. Hopefully, yeah. And so ultimately, that's what copywriting is to me. Is taking that idea and synthesizing it into the written word to get a result you want.
Very cool. So you hung your own shingle. You got to feel like the pain of your clients, right? Like, oh, this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
How do you go about getting your clients? How do the interactions at the beginning go? Ultimately, once they're onboarded, how is your relationship with them?
Generally, I like to start with the relationship first. Before there's even like a meeting, I like to at least like try to be, friendly, of course, like novel idea, like try to be friendly with people. Yeah. but like, sometimes I'll get, referrals, and that goes like a little bit quicker because there's already like, oh, we know somebody, and I like to spend like at least like 15, 20 minutes just like, shooting the, I can have a mouth on me. So like, I'm trying my best.
Shit if you want.
Shooting the shit.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. The doors are open. What have you done?
Yeah. Now we're awake.
Now we're awake. We've had our coffee and whatnot. But I just like to do that and try to get to know them, like, because like for me, like it is a personal thing, like I'm not just, getting clients for the sake of like making money. Like I want to like be friends with these folks because they're doing something that they really care about. And just trying to get to know them on that personal level is just super important to me. And then we get to like, well, why are you doing this? Like, why are you like staking so much of your life on this idea? And from there, once they're on board at that point, like hopefully, there's a connection there where they feel comfortable with me, like putting forth a plan for them. And once they're in, I like to spend like 3 hours, like as like the first like meeting, just like really, really getting to know them and then going to from like the first like hour and a half, like getting all that personal detail, because there's little things like firing off in my brain all the time, the different like narratives, like connecting those. And then, the last hour and a half, that's when we get down to, the whole hero's journey of it all, and like putting it together in a way that there's a framework that we could follow, and putting it simple, because I think a lot of people like to complicate things, like when it comes like to this sort of thing. But also just like connecting it to a marketing piece, because one thing that, I can't speak for everyone else who does what I do, but, I've spent years of my career just like even making like marketing campaigns. How are we making money from this? So like, yeah, like we have like the touchy feely aspect, like, oh, this feels good, but it's like, okay, well, what ideas are we having from this process that's going to end up being like, well, is it a website? Is it like email capture? Like, is it a social media strategy? Is it a podcast strategy? Like, all these things funnel to something like that. And like, oh, I'm able to do that. So like, yeah, if you just want to build a brand, like, yeah, we can build a brand. But like, in my experience, if you're just building a brand, but you're not like capitalizing on that, like,
right,
it's just empty and hollow. Like, there needs to be something to at least measure something against. Like we were talking about like the data, the qualitative and quantitative. Like, I love the qualitative. Like, I'll be in that, I'll marinate in that all day. But like, I'm like, okay, but really, like, I've seen a lot of brands just kind of fumble the ball when they can't connect it to something that's actionable. Yeah. And so like, that's what we do the first like 3 or 4 hours. And if they want to do other stuff too, like get a narrative about a product, we'll tack on another hour. We can talk. But I've had, I worked with a leadership company out of Vancouver, and it was myself and, three women in the organization, and we were all just like, this feels like a therapy session, like I'm getting like teary eyed and stuff. But like, I love that shit. Like, because it's everything's personal,
For sure.
And, yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you hung your own shingle. Just kidding. I just wanted to say what he said. That was absurd. I've never heard that before.
I'll put that in my back pocket.
Yeah. So you hung your own shingle. How do you measure? I mean, what are good metrics for companies and people who are wanting to work with you to think about like good outcomes? Because it is kind of ephemeral.
Let's go with it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's just out in the ether,
Yeah.
Let's just say you hung your own shingle. Go.
Yeah, I hung my own shingle. You're asking an English major to talk about shingles. I think we can get there, though.
No, like, how do you measure a campaign? What are some good measurements?
Obviously, like, if we connect it to something that's, like, real, like, for instance, before I even got into, like, now I have to even remind myself my own history. So I moved to Nashville for a little bit after the expert voice situation.
Why did you leave?
I had to do. I was joking earlier that I'm an ethnic Utahn. Like, so, it's not like I haven't been here forever, but like, my family, my mom's side of the family is like, pioneer type of thing.
I think Nashville's my favorite city.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Las Vegas of the South. And I actually like lived in Las Vegas for a little bit, and like part of my mom's family's from Vegas.
That's a good way of putting it, actually.
So like, but a lot like Las Vegas, the locals don't really go downtown.
Oh yeah.
So like,
no locals on Broadway.
No, yeah. Like I went down there to show like my oldest. I'm like, all right, here's Broadway.
Here's Tootsie's.
Yeah, pretty much. But one thing that I learned after my time at Expert Voice when I went to Nashville, like I was hired as a content strategist working for user groups for tech companies, and it was my job to create these like new content, not in campaigns, but just like strategies and plans. And I ended up having to, create podcasts for these user groups. And I was interviewing like the head of like a CTO of like a cloud company. And I didn't know like anything about that stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to learn quick. But the thing is like being able to see like the line go up, as far as like listens, subscribers. So like pretty like, to put it simple, like line go up.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But to make it even more interesting, like I was also in charge of like the email. I was wearing a lot of hats there, but also seeing sometimes the lines go up and down, and that's natural too. And I think like there's a natural inclination to get freaked out about like, okay, we built something, things are going down a little bit. What's happening? But that's why I like to connect like that part of my life with building content and being able to look at the real, numbers of it all, but also talk to those user groups, which was that's what the point of those user groups were, to get that feedback for the larger company, but we would get feedback on our stuff too that we would give to them.
Right.
And so if I were working with a brand and we're only doing brand building and I'm giving them ideas for headlines, because I can give you a headline and I can already see the whole campaign in my head. Like, all right, this is how you execute it. You're going to make a video like this, video like that, or whatever else, right?
Uh-huh.
And really, like, that's the hard thing if it's only like brand, because the only thing you really have, and like the brand does its due diligence because they're investing too. So if all we're doing is brand building, I'm assuming you're paying me as an investment so you know what to do later. And like, of course, like one of the things I look for, like, okay, are you happy? And like, yeah, I feel like I have a good batting average with that. Like,
Yeah.
But ultimately the responsibility is on the brand to execute it if that's what we're doing.
Right.
But if you're also having me build out these other campaigns, then we can get down to it. But like, ultimately, I can give you all the tools in the world.
Yeah.
I can give you all the ideas in the world too. Like, this is how you can change your website to get more leads. This is how you can do that. There you go.
You got to execute.
You got to execute it.
Let's ask Garrett if he's happy. Garrett, are you happy?
In life?
No comment. No, just kidding.
In life, he asks.
You already know the answer to that. It's a resounding no, but working on it. Working on it. You guys, this is both more of your world than mine, but storytelling and brands, maybe this is because, these are on frequently during sports, but I remember these all the way from being 3 or 4 years old. United States Marine Corps, United States Army, Budweiser, Clydesdales,
Yep.
Geico Insurance.
The gecko. Yep.
Yeah.
All that.
Caveman. They make me
Yeah.
laugh. But what are some brands or storytelling that are your favorite?
This is pretty like niche. But the first thing I go to, so I'm a guitar player. Like my background is like pretty like musical. Like I've done time. I say it like I went to prison, but in a sense it's true. But I joke that like a lot of people in Utah, a lot of guys, when they graduate high school, they go like on a mission or whatever. But I sat in a van for 2 years and went on tour.
That is way better.
Yeah. Yeah. In certain ways, I mean, I'm not going to say, but either which way, I know my audience, but like I did Warped Tour and,
Oh, really?
yeah. Like,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah. It was like, it's like Charles Dickens, like it's the worst of time. It's the best of times, type of situation. It was hard. But anyway, back to your question.
What instrument did you play? Or
in that band, I played bass and I did a little bit of vocals, but
Okay.
I still write songs. Like it's one of those things I'm gonna do when I'm like 70.
But this is your band Swans of Never?
This is a different band
Okay.
called Day 2.
Okay.
But exclusive. There's some news bubbling up with that. We haven't played in a long time, but that's
Ooh,
anyway.
little cliffhanger.
Breaking news.
Anyway, there's this guitar pedal brand called JHS out of St. Louis or Kansas City, Missouri. They are doing YouTube probably better than anyone in any industry that I could think of. So one of my, I'll call him an acquaintance, but his name is Finn McKenty. He does a YouTube channel called the Punk Rock MBA. He's doing really, really well on YouTube. And he's on LinkedIn. And so pretty much if you're out there and you want to level up your YouTube game, like you got to follow him. And one of the things that he would say is like brands need to entertain. If you're going to be on YouTube, you need to entertain, and it's going probably to do more for your business than probably not to say anything else, but like it's a big deal. And so what this brand does, JHS, the founder goes on and just nerds out about guitar pedals. And if you're not familiar with guitar pedals, like if you're watching a band play and someone's playing something, right, and all of a sudden a different sound comes on, chances are there's something on the ground that he's stepping on to make it sound different. And so that's what guitar pedals are. And so he's the founder of this company and he wants to sell his own guitar pedals, but he spends about 90% of his time talking about other people's guitar pedals. And he just dorks out behind them. It's just a wall. Like he's like a true connoisseur, but like he's not being selfish with his platform. Like he's shouting out up and coming, manufacturers. He's talking about the big guys. Like like I've never heard him say this is a crappy guitar pedal, but because he's doing that and he's sharing this information, and he's also like when he does talk about his pedals, like it feels like a special thing because his pedals are really good too. And so like people are sucked in because he's talking about this thing that people dork out about. But when it's time for him to talk about his own pedals, people are interested.
Yeah.
And so I think when brands like are just excited about what they do, and it's just infectious. So so if anyone out there that's interested in guitars or anything like that, it's just fun too. It's like that's a thing. Like I made up, like I remember once, like in a job interview, I made up this stupid like the 3 E's. You know, I thought I sounded so cool, but it's kind of true. But like if you're gonna make content, like you got to do like one or more of these things. Like you got to empathize with the people you're talking to, got to educate them, but like entertain them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm not saying like being like zany or like weird or whatever. Like entertainment can also be just be like I'm learning. Well, I'm learning something by paying attention, whether it's something that's like serious or like it doesn't matter the tone. If you can keep people's attention, like that's what matters. That's to me, that's what's like entertainment is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love JHS pedals. I think they're doing great. Of course, everyone talks about like Liquid Death. But
yeah, how did they get so? That's a fascinating rise.
I feel like I kind of got like the inside track of like seeing the origins a bit. So when I was on Warped Tour, this was 2004. So pretty much if you do that tour in a van, it's like it's really bad for you. Like I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. But,
I would have thought the opposite.
No, well, if you're in a bus, like it's totally fine. Like you're living kind of. Yeah. But there's a lot of overnight drives, getting there early in the morning. But what would happen, because Monster was a sponsor of the Vans Warped Tour, and they would give cases of Monster to like all, pretty much like if they see you like in a van and trailer or bus, where like, they're giving you a case like every day. Well, they didn't give us water because they would give cans in water. So, but they gave us the energy drink. So I drank energy drinks all the time. But when we were on stage, we would have the canned water. And I don't know if this is like a fever dream or anything like that, but I think I remember hearing John, I forget his last name, Cisnero, something like that. I'm totally butchering it. He mentioned Warped Tour being like, oh, I noticed these bands with cans on stage. Like it said Monster, right? Yeah. But it was just really water in there. But it was their way of, marketing to like a shit ton of kids every single day.
Yeah.
And so I think, if I remember correctly, that was kind of like the thing that stuck in his head. Like, we're just selling water, but we're putting awesome branding on it. And everything that they've done as far as like their advertising, like it's not for everyone. Yep. But the people that get it, they get it.
It's genius.
They're buying merch. They're buying anything that they can because like they just identify with them so much. And so that'd be one of them.
They're all over podcasts too. Like, what do you think like podcast marketing? Like, how would you recommend like these big podcasts? I feel like every podcast I watch, there's a can of Liquid Death on it.
I think that's
or Celsius. The other one is Celsius.
Yeah, I think I saw that too. I think people can tell when someone's full of shit.
Yeah.
Because I think I was just listening to a podcast. There's this hardcore punk band called H2O, and the singer, he has a podcast called One Life, One Chance. He has guests on and talking about like positivity and stuff like that. Like he's an actual Liquid Death ambassador. You take one look at him, and you're like, well, no, duh. He like loves it. But like I've heard ad reads where someone's just like phoning it in. It's like, I don't believe you. Mm-hmm. like one thing, like I'm thankful about my time at Expert Voice. Like we talked about like authenticity before. Like authenticity was like a buzzword. Like I cringe when I say it now because it's just thrown around way too much. But it's like you can tell whether it's like consciously or subconsciously when someone's like, get your promo code at 20% off. Just stop. Like it's like, okay, you're just phoning it in. But like I think if there's like a match between like the host, like a true match between the host and someone else, like or a host and a brand, like it's synergy, like it's just obvious. Like
yeah, a good example of that would be a local company, Traeger, and their sponsorship of Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
has gone really well for them. Just because, I mean, he'll talk. He clearly has a Traeger, and he clearly uses it nearly every day, right? And that type of a partnership, that's got to be incredible for Traeger and
Yeah, totally.
super easy money for Rogan. It's like I already
Shooting
do
a fish in a barrel. They got the budget to do it, and if you know like the host or like even like influencer marketing, right? I spent some time in influencer marketing when I was working at Space Station a little bit, and I think it just needs to make sense. Like the ones that I know, because I'll listen to a lot of podcasts, and there'll be similar ads for the same company, and it's the same read, but if someone's throwing in their own little inflections in there, it's like, no, really, I use this. Like, it's just that much better. Like these podcasts and influencers, they're getting paid the same.
Yeah.
They don't have, it's not like they give like a 5% kicker. It's like, can you just say that you use this? Maybe they are, but you can just tell,
You know what's funny? I'm starting to see podcast ads of McDonald's. That's how we know podcasts are going mainstream. I think it was Smartless. Jason Bateman show. I don't know. Sometimes I listen to it. And it's actually really good. I don't know why I just dismissed it. But they have McDonald's ads. I was like, whoa. And they're literally advertising like specific burgers, like a quarter pounder with cheese. I was like, oh, this is crazy. That's how you know podcasts have made it, when McDonald's, one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic brands, is using it.
It would, I don't know, to me, like if I had the budget, like if I were like working for a big brand, like it's, as long as I knew, like I'm not just like spray and pray, I'm like hoping for something to hit, but like if I can identify like a podcast that's actually like true to what I do, like I would do it all day because it's relatively cheap.
Yeah.
And if you give them a good CTA, be like, okay, go to this website, put in this, discount. I kind of made fun of it earlier, but that was when, when it's clear that it doesn't make sense. You're like, man, you're just trying to get a buck off of me. But it's like, okay, like for instance, One Life, One Chance, like, yeah, I'm going to buy a case of Liquid Death.
Yeah.
And I have.
Why do you think Nike is so good at this?
I mean,
maybe the best at it.
Yeah, like as far as it was just in general.
Not podcasts.
Yeah,
just branding, storytelling, marketing.
Yeah.
Some of it must be because sports are so relatable, right? And the athletes themselves, you're really like promoting the athletes themselves as much as the sportswear and stuff. But have you studied them? Like, why do you think they're so good at it?
Like, for me, what I'm wearing Nike right now. Is that? Did you get clued off on that? But I think for me, like, of course, like you can take a look at Michael Jordan. He's one of the greatest of all time, top two. Arguably in the NBA.
One.
So, LeBron James. I don't know.
Top one.
No, I still.
We
have
don't
trauma
let anybody
from,
say LeBron's number one. No, I'm just kidding.
I have trauma from the 2 final series. So Utah Jazz and Bulls. Anyway, but. Yeah, like you need someone like that, like to push a shoe, like I was about to call him Dwayne Wade. No, Damian Lillard with Adidas. Like, of course you need someone like that, but they have gone deeper and made that brand synonymous with just like trying hard, like doing your best. Like it's like the idea of like anyone could be like an athlete, right? And the way they've done that, through their ads, to make it really aspirational, like. And it's not like, it's not cheesy either, right? Like whenever I see a Nike ad, I'm never like, here we go again.
Yeah.
Like you're hearing.
They're always incredible.
Yeah, they're always great. And, whatever you think about, some of the athletes they sponsor or whatever, but like, forget about that. Like just think about like how they just tell that story of like people like achieving stuff. And using their bodies to do that, like, of course I always choke up when it's like, someone who's like missing a leg and they're running like as fast as they can around, like, man, like it's awesome. So they've harnessed that. They've had a lot of time too to perfect that. So, it's, I don't want to say it's clockwork for them, but like kind of is.
Steve Jobs used to be great at it at Apple. I'm not sure if Apple's still great at it, but Apple used to be fantastic at it.
I've seen some weird stuff these days, like incorporating like weird colors that you wouldn't assume with Apple. Like it's one thing with the products. Remember the old like computers where you could see through them, they're like color, like that was cool, but like instead of a white background, they're using like green. And like for someone like that to be around for like decades, all of a sudden they're doing that. Of course, like people are allowed to do different things, but even like the text of the headline was like really weird
Yeah.
and unlike them. Like I'm praying that was like a weird, like,
Yeah.
someone made that up and pretended it was them, but
Yeah.
neither here or there.
So we should get Nike as a podcast sponsor.
It's possible.
Okay. Put it on the list.
Are you happy, Garrett?
Still no, but trending towards yes.
I have another hour afterwards if you want to have some therapy.
What about politics as
Yeah.
it comes to storytelling and,
Yeah.
and branding? There's going to be no shortage of good examples and bad examples
Yeah.
for the next little while.
I mean, it's interesting because, especially since like, I'll say like 2015, before, Clinton, Trump, I felt like the dials turned up quite a bit on like tribalism or whatever else. And, that kind of stuff sells if you do it well enough, like, I mean, you can take a look at history of like propaganda that's selling an idea. Right. And I think, through the lens of like America, we're a capitalist country, right? If we can make a quick buck off of that, we're going to do it. Right. Like whether it's through good faith means or not. And even like certain decisions like a brand could make that may not be deemed as political. Like one thing I learned in college, I know like this is like the liberal college idea. It's like, well, the personal is political. And when I heard that, it's like everything just kind of clicked into place for me as far as like, well, of course, like someone on the right or left is going to have an idea of what they think about like what this brand is trying to sell because they see certain indicators that are subconscious be like, oh, they have this person doing this. I don't like that brand anymore.
That's like that Dylan Mulvaney
that
with
I thought
Bud
was
Light.
about that.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that was like, like my politics aside, like I felt like that was kind of like a moment of weakness in Bud Light. Like obviously, like I have people that I love that are LGBTQ. Like
Sure.
I'm supportive of that, but like I just felt like they forgot who their audience was for a second. Like for a quick
It's
second,
like they wanted
forgot.
a whole new audience.
Yeah, like, but then they ended up like, I mean, I thought it was silly, like the blowback.
These are our uncles and older brothers who
Right,
are alcoholics who drink Bud Light. Let's not try to veer off the path.
Yeah, like I just felt like
They're set.
I understand, like I appreciate that they tried,
Yeah.
but like, what else were they expecting?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like you might have deserved that a little bit,
Yeah.
Dylan Mulvaney didn't deserve the blowback whatsoever, but like as far as brand is concerned, it's just like you should have known. It's like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like Liquid Death or whatever. Like, but the thing is with Liquid Death, they could have someone that you wouldn't expect, and they could make it work.
Yeah.
But when you have a brand like Bud Light, when there's just so many like hands in the pot, especially creatively, like internally at these brands, like you got to get sign off from 20 to 25 people. You can't move quickly. You can't do weird stuff. Like that was a weird decision that they ended up there,
Yeah.
But
Good political branding would be like Obama's 2008 with hope and change and
Yeah.
like those posters. I remember that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maybe the best in our lifetime is the red hat, if
Yeah.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Like that is, in
That's-
terms of branding,
Mhm.
incredible. We all know what that stands for and what that
Exactly.
means. And
Yeah, in that, I've done like a little bit of political work, but that I think what appealed to people about Trump is that he made things really easy and simple to understand. You may not like it, but like you're not using big, collegiate words or like therapy speak. You're not they're still struggling with that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
you're going to use words like patriarchy. What does that mean?
yeah.
Not everybody knows or cares. You got to simplify it. And so when Obama uses change or hope, it's like, okay, that tells me in one word, that tells me a story. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And for Trump, 4 words tell a story.
Trump just went even more basic because the
Yeah.
Obama posters were like well designed, like really kind of like artistic and all that type of stuff. I don't think Trump changed the font. That's probably Times New Roman. He's like, red hat, make America great again.
Yeah.
Let's just keep saying it over and over again.
And it stuck.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
So like from a purely objective point of view, it's like, all right, well, someone was smart there, But now it's a matter of, I think, like, if I were to put, like, my political strategist hat on, like, you got to give people a reason to care about their own lives, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the same thing that I would tell a brand, you
Yeah.
know? So I think, if for my advice to like any like political organizer or campaign manager or whatever, like, get some marketing people in there. They're too insular.
Yeah.
For sure.
So
And if there's one thing Trump's great at, it's that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Little bit of news with some stories and good brands. Our good friend Earl Foote, who's also a musician,
very
plays
nice.
the bass, I believe, and the band is 90 Proof. Nexus IT is his company, and it joins Acronis as the new team-up partner for the Utah Jazz. Earl and Nexus IT have been great. They do all of our IT work for Slope Summit, and it's always fun to see companies obviously swimming upstream, right? Like the Jazz are one of the best stories and brands in the state of Utah. And congrats to Earl and the Nexus IT team. All going to keep things safe through cybersecurity and all the things that Nexus IT does. I think Earl and his group do a great job of telling a very cool story about something that most people don't understand, IT and cybersecurity.
Earl has a great podcast, too, that we should shout out.
He does. I've been on it.
Yeah.
He's
Maybe
a
it's
very
not that
host.
good, actually.
Yeah. Well, this
If
is
you've
why I'm
been
not happy. I get taken to the woodshed every day at 10 a.m.
Well, I don't know. You were on it. I thought it was a good podcast.
It was. Real quick, another story. A lot of science in this one. And it may have already happened. I'm not sure. We've had this in the queue for a while, but there is a Utah connection here. But anyways, Varda is a company, and they landed or will land a capsule in the West Desert. But a lot of trillions of hours of physics and chemistry and space aviation went into this. But they were doing some experiments that they launched through SpaceX, something about zero gravity as it relates to the experiments they were trying to do. But one of the co-founders of Varda Space Industries went to West High School. His name is Delin, D-E-L-I-N, Delin Asparoff. I think I pronounced that right.
Guaranteed you did it.
Maybe.
As I'm looking at the spelling, I couldn't do any better.
Okay, Asparoff. Anyways, proud West High School graduate. They launch it, SpaceX. They do all of their cool experiments in zero gravity. And then through really cool calculations and math and a lot of safety, they landed the parcel, or will land it, in the West Desert. So there's hard things, and then there's like really hard things. So kudos to them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Very cool indeed.
Matthew, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Do you go by
Yeah.
Matthew or Matt?
we can go by Matt now. Matthew's like just
At
like
the beginning of the
sign-off.
show, it was Matthew.
Yeah, but then like we have a couple emails in, then I'll change it to Matt.
That's awesome.
So,
If folks are interested in bringing you on, which I would recommend after getting to know you for an hour, how do they get in contact?
pretty simple. Chapterscreative.com. I just did some work on that the past couple of weeks. That's going back to the whole like having blinders on, whatever. Like I brought in my pal Genevieve from Paper Panther Studios. She helped me out a lot visually on that, so we worked together to spruce that up a little bit. You can find me on LinkedIn, where you can find me, probably being really opinionated about stuff, but it is what it is about politics or whatever else, but that's what you sign up for. But overall, just get a hold of me there. You can put something on my calendar, and I can get to know you and your business, and change it up.
Yeah.
Very cool. Real quick before we go, I want to mention Domopalooza again. I believe we have a video. Do we have a video back there, producers, that we can show of Domopalooza coming up soon? Actually, March 26th through 29th, Salt Lake City, Utah. Probably at the Salt Palace is my guess. You can get tickets for it, domo.com/Domopalooza, domo.com/Domopalooza. Make sure you check it out. Josh and the crew there do an incredible... Look at this. This is a concert. This is like a 2-day concert, 3-day concert.
It looked like Usher for a
It
second.
is a ton of fun.
I'm pretty sure he has had Usher.
Yeah.
He's had like those types.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Chase Miller, founder of Jim Share, guest for tomorrow.
Yes. Very cool.